नारायणं नरचैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to today's Bhagavatam reading session. So we had completed till 25th or 26th.
Mataji, Hare Krishna. We have completed 25th, Mataji.
Till 25th, right, Prabhu?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mataji.
From 26th onwards, we have to, yeah. पातालम् एतस्य हि पादमूलम् पठानि पार्शिनि प्रपदे रसातलम् महातलम् विश्वसृजो अथ गुल्फो तलातलम् वे पुरुषस्य जङ्घे. Lakshminarayan Prabhu, please do the honors of reading the translation and purport both.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Translation. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets, and his shanks constitute the Talatala planets. Purport. Outside the bodily existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the manifested cosmic existence has no reality. Everything and anything of the manifested world rests on him, as confirmed in the Bhagavad-gītā 9.4. But that does not imply that everything and anything in the vision of a materialist is the Supreme Personality. The conception of the universal form of the Lord gives a chance to the materialist to think of the Supreme Lord, but the materialist must know for certain that his visualization of the world in a spirit of lording over it is not God realization. The materialistic view of exploitation of the material resources is occasioned by the illusion of the external energy of the Lord, and as such, if anyone wants to realize the supreme truth by conceiving of the universal form of the Lord, he must cultivate the service attitude. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of Virat realization will have very little effect on the seer. The transcendental Lord, in any conception of his form, is never a part of the material creation. He keeps his identity as Supreme Spirit in all circumstances and is never affected by the three material qualities, for everything material is contaminated. The Lord always exists by his internal energy. The universe is divided into 14 planetary systems. 7 planetary systems called Bhur, Bhuvar, Swa, Mahar, Janas, Tapas, and Satya are upward planetary systems, one above the other. There are also 7 planetary systems downward known as Athala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala, gradually, one below the other. In these words, the description begins from the bottom because it is in the line of devotion that the Lord's bodily description should begin from his feet. Sukadeva Goswami is a recognized devotee of the Lord, and he is exactly correct in the description. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. So, in second canto, there are these 3 chapters that are dedicated to the Virat Rupa. And then in the third canto, within the first 5 chapters, there are 2 more descriptions of the Virat Rupa within like a span of 15 chapters. And there are again 5 descriptions of the Virat Rupa. But you know, all these descriptions are not the same, because Parikshit Maharaj has only 7 days to live. So Shukdev Goswami will not give a very, redundant presentation. So in second and third canto, the purpose of this description of Virat Rupa is actually different. Though it's Virat Rupa, but the purpose of description is different, not same. So, for example, this first chapter description of this Virat Rupa is to show a Virat Rupa meditator. So, what is the bona fide form of this Virat Rupa? What should be imagined? So, to describe what is a bona fide form of the Virat Rupa, this description is coming in the first chapter of this Canto 2. And again in the sixth chapter also of this Canto 2, one more description of the Virat Rupa comes, but the purpose of that description is different. Uh, there it is there to show how the Supreme Lord is simultaneously the material and the effective cause of this universe. And he gives over there an example that example of a pot. A potter, he makes a pot, and he can make a pot not out of air. He needs clay to make the pot. So the clay is called the material cause of the pot. You can say it's called upadana karana. Then the clay by itself also cannot become the pot. The potter has to be there. So the potter is called the effective cause, nimitta karan. But first the potter and the clay. The pot will not manifest on its own. He needs a potter wheel. He needs that potter's wheel and a stick to rotate the wheel. So the stick and the wheel, they are called the instrumental cause. Instrumental means sahakari cause, who are helping actually. So there are three causes for anything. But the sixth chapter of the second canto describe how the Supreme Lord Vishnu, that is Garbhodaksha Vishnu, is both the material and the effective cause and the instrumental cause of this universe. So that is brought about by the description of the Virat Rupa. And then the 10th chapter of the canto, the third description of the Virat Rupa comes to explain that how the gross body and the subtle body is created due to the desires. And whether it's Virat Rupa, if you see the Purusha or the Virat Rupa also has a gross and a subtle body, or it is the individual entity. So for both these categories, the creation of this gross and subtle bodies is implied by desires, and desires create gross and subtle body. So if you see over here in this particular paragraph, I'm sorry, where did it go? Yeah, over here. The materialistic view of exploitation of the material resources is occasioned by the illusion of the external energy of the Lord. And as such, if anyone wants to realize the supreme truth by conceiving the universal form, he must cultivate service attitude. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of Virat realization will have a very little effect on the seer. So, somebody may ask that how can one benefit from the conception of Virat Rupa meditation by giving up, lording it over, and the exploitation mentality, and what should he do? Then he should cultivate service attitude. This is what is being said in this these particular lines. So let's go to the next. Dvejanuni sutalam vishwamurter urudvayam vitalam chatlam cha mahitalam tajjagana mahipate nabhastalam nabhisaro grunanti. Actually, it's grinanti. Sorry. Translation: the knees of the universal form are planetary systems of the name Sutala, and the two thighs are the Vitala and Atala planetary systems. The hips are Mahitala, and the outer space is the depression of his navel. Yeah, Virat Rupa is the physical form of the Lord. Yeah, correct, Priyanka Mataji. पुरःस्थलं ज्योतिरनिकम् अस्य ग्रीवा महार्वदनं वैजनस्य तपो वरातिं विदुर आदिपुंसा सत्यं तो शीर्षाणि सहस्रशीर्षना. Anuprabhu, please read the translation and purport both.
Translation: the chest of the original personality of the gigantic form is the luminary planetary system. His neck is the Maha planets, his mouth is the Janas planets, and his forehead is the Tapas planetary system. The topmost planetary system, known as Satyaloka, is the head of he who has 1,000 heads. Purport: the effulgent luminary planets like the sun and the moon are situated almost in the mid-place of the universe, and as such, they are to be known as the chest of the original gigantic form of the Lord. And above the luminary planets, called also the heavenly places of the universal directorate demigods, are the Maha, Janas, and Tapas planetary systems, and above all, the Satyaloka planetary system, where the chief directors of the modes of material nature reside, namely Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. This Vishnu is known as the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, and he acts as the supersoul in every living being. There are innumerable universes floating on the causal ocean, and each of them the representation of the Virat form of the Lord is there along with innumerable suns, moons, heavenly demigods, Brahmas, Vishnus, and Shivas, all of them situated in one part of the inconceivable potency of Lord Krishna as stated in the Bhagavad-gītā 10.42.
Yeah, this 10.42 is Atavai bahunai kim gyane tatavar arjuna vibhashtabhyam midam krishtam kama sena sito jagat. So yeah, we'll go to the next. Indradayo bahava ahurustra Karnau disha stotram amushya shabdah nasatya dasrau paramasya nase granus asya gandho mukham agnir idah. Vrinda, please read the translation and purport both.
Translation: his arms are the demigods headed by Indra. The 10 directional sides are his ears and his physical sound in his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the 2 Ashwini Kumaras, and material fragrance is his sense of smell. His mouth is the blazing fire. Purport: the description of the gigantic form of the personality of Godhead made in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā is further explained here in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The description in the Bhagavad-gītā 11.30 runs as follows. O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people in your blazing mouths and covering all the universe by your immeasurable rays. Scorching the worlds, you are manifest. In that way, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the postgraduate study for the student of the Bhagavad Gita. Both of them are the signs of Krishna, the absolute truth, and so they are interdependent. The conception of the Virat Purusha, or the gigantic form of the Lord, Supreme Lord, is said to include all the dominating demigods as well as the dominated living beings. Even the minutest part of a living being is controlled by the empowered agency of the Lord. Since the demigods are included in the gigantic form of the Lord, worship of the Lord, whether in his gigantic material conception or in his eternal transcendental form as Lord Sri Krishna, also appeases the demigods and all the other parts and parcels. As much as watering the root of a tree distributes energy to all of the tree's other parts. Consequently, for a materialistic also, worship of the universal gigantic form of the Lord leads one to the right path. One need not take risk being misled by approaching many demigods for fulfillment of different desires. The real entity is the Lord Himself, and all others are imaginary, for everything is included in Him only. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So, there are some terminologies they will keep on appearing in the first, second, third cantos for actually sensory experience. And what are the things that are needed is actually described in the Shastras. So, for example, if I want to experience eating a rasgulla, so for that one needs a gross tongue. It's called talu in Sanskrit. So there is a subtle tongue that is, rasna or jibha, and the soul carries the subtle body. So when we say the, pranam mantra, chakshu shan unmilitam yena tasme. So it does not mean, you know, he comes and literally comes and opens our eyes. When we say, no, Guru opens our eyes, not like the literal meaning he'll come and open your eyes. No, it means that the inner eyes, which had been inclined to respond to some material stimuli, he opens it and makes that eye respond to the spiritual stimulus. So we need gross eyes, tongue, subtle eyes, tongue, and then there is a sense devata, Varuna. So each sense has a controlling devata. So for eyes, we approach Surya Devata. So the gross organ and the sense organ, they just signals from the sense objects, but whether it is acceptable or not acceptable, it is decided by the mind. So the mind is also needed. That's to say that it is acceptable. Okay, if I ate a rasgulla and it was very pleasing, and if I want to eat one more rasgulla, then the intelligence has to, scheme. So then who should I approach to get the next rasgulla? So then the intelligence comes. So the subtle tongue, gross tongue, sense devta, that is Varuna, mind, intelligence, and of course the sense object, that is Rasgulla, also has to be there. So all these things has to function in order to get that sensory experience. So in the 5th chapter, we see how the ahankar, each of these sense objects are created from the ahankar layer. How the sattvic ahankar, how the mind is created, how the sense devatas are also created from the sattvic ahankar, how the intelligence is created from the rajas ahankar, how the karmendriyas, jnanendriyas are created from the rajas ahankar, how the sense objects are created from the tamas ahankar. So, karna means gross ears, and shotra, that is the subtle organ. So there are 8 dig devatas, the 8 directions. They have controlling devatas, and they have sense devatas of hearing: shabda, gandha, rupa, rasa, sparsha, nasika is the gross. So Ghrhan is the subtle nose, uh, as the and Ashwini Kumaras are also there. They are the sense devatas. Akshini is the gross eye. Chakshu is the subtle eye, and Surya Dev is the sense devata of that. So all these, we'll be studying much more in detail when we come to the 5th chapter. So that is why in this particular shloka, if you see that arms are the demigods headed by Indra, the 10 directions that are there, this all description has been given. Let's go to the next. ध्यायुर अक्षिणी चक्षुर अभूत पतंगा पक्षमाणी विष्णुरहनि उभे च तद्ब्रुहु विजृंभ परमेष्टि दिष्ण्या मामोपस्य तालुरस एवं जिह्वा. Priyanka, please read translation and purport both.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Translation. The sphere of outer space constitutes his eyelids, and the eyeball is the sun as the power of seeing. His eyelids are both the day and night, and in the movements of his eyebrows, Brahma and similar supreme personalities reside. His palate is the director of water, Varuna, and the juice or essence of everything is his tongue. Purport. To common sense, the description in this verse appears to be somewhat contradictory because sometimes the sun has been described as the eyeball and sometimes as the outer space sphere. But there is no room for common sense in the injunctions of the Shastras. We must accept the description of the Shastras and concentrate more on the form of the Virat Roop than on common sense. Common sense is always imperfect, whereas the description in the Shastras is always perfect and complete. If there is any incongruity, it is due to our imperfection and not the Shastras. That is the method of approaching Vedic wisdom. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Priyanka. So we'll go to the next. So missed something. छन्दमासि अनन्तस्य शिरो गृह्णाति दंष्ट्रा यं स्नेह कला द्विजानि हासो जनोन्मादकरीद च माया दुरन्त सर्गो यत् अपांग मोक्षः. Vaishnavi, please read translation and purport both.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Translation. They say that The Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage of the Lord, and his jaws of teeth are Yama, god of death, who punishes the sinners. The art of affection is his set of teeth, and the most alluring illusory material energy is his mind. This great ocean of material creation is but the casting of his glance over us. Purport. According to Vedic assertion, this material creation is the result of the Lord's casting a glance over the material energy, which is described herein as the most alluring illusory energy. The conditioned souls who are allured by such materialism should know that the material temporary creation is simply an imitation of the reality, and that those who are captivated by such alluring glances of the Lord are put under the direction of the controller of sinners called Yamaraj. The Lord smiles affectionately, displaying his teeth. The intelligent person who can grasp these truths about the Lord becomes a soul fully surrendered unto him. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So when we see the Virat Rupa of the form, we can really appreciate. Like when you see the mountains, you see rivers, you see oceans, you see lakes. All these things, they help us to appreciate the Creator, the Supreme Lord. Okay. व्रीडोत्तरोष्ठो अधर एव लोभो धर्मस्तनो अधर्म पथो अस्य पृष्ठम कतस्य मेढ्रम वृषणो च मित्रो कुक्षी समुद्रगिरयो अस्थित संगः. Priyanka, read the purport and translation both again.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Translation: Modesty is the upper portion of his lips, anchoring is his chin, religion is the breast of the Lord, and irreligion is his back. Brahmaji, who generates all living beings in the material world, is his genitals, and the Mitra Varunas are his two testicles. The ocean is his waist, and the hills and mountains are the stacks of his bones. Purport: The Supreme Lord is not impersonal as misconceived by less intelligent thinkers. Rather, he is the Supreme Person as confirmed in all authentic Vedic literatures. But his personality is different from what we can conceive. It is stated here that Brahmaji acts as his genitals and that the Mitra Varunas are his two testicles. This means that as a person, he is complete with all bodily organs, but they are of different types with different potencies. When the Lord is described as impersonal, therefore, it should be understood that his personality is not exactly the type of personality found within our imperfect speculation. One can, however, worship the Lord even by seeing the hills and mountains or the ocean and the sky as different parts and parcels of the gigantic body of the Lord, the Virat Purusha. The Virat Roop is as exhibited by Lord Krishna to Arjuna is a challenge to the unbelievers. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. नद्योस्य नाद्यो अथ तनुरुहानि महीरुहा विश्वतनो नृपेन्द्र अनन्तवीर्य श्वसितं मातरिश्वा गति गतिर्वयं कर्म गुण प्रवाह. Preeti Mataji, please read translation and purport both.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
O King, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body, the trees are the hair of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. Purport: The personality of Godhead is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive as is poorly thought by some schools. He moves with the progress of time. and therefore he knows all about the past and future, along with his present activities. There is nothing unknown to him. The conditioned souls are driven by the reactions of the modes of material nature, which are the activities of the Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad-gītā 7.12, the modes of nature act under his direction only, and as such, no natural functions are blind or automatic. The power behind the activities is the supervision of the Lord, and thus the Lord is never inactive as is wrongly conceived. The Vedas say that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do personally, as is always the case with superiors, but everything is done by his direction. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. In the Brahma Samhita 5.48, it is said that all the universes and the heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universes and the planets within the universes exist in is nothing but a bit of the breath of the unchallengeable Virat Purusha. So even by studying the rivers, trees, air, and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of Godhead without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of the Supreme Truth are more troubled than those who can intelligently conceive of the personal form. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. This 12.5 is Kleshodhikarastha tesham avyakta saktati chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham deva bhir avapatya. So actually I just forgot to mention one point in the previous shloka. What happened? Yeah, previous to previous shloka. Just give me 1 minute, okay? I beg forgiveness. Sorry, I did not mention. It is a very important point. Here. See, if you see in this particular paragraph, where I think Brinda read this paragraph, if I'm not mistaken. He says over here, in the same way, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the postgraduate study of the student of the Bhagavad-gītā. Both of them are the science of Kṛṣṇa, the Absolute, and so both are interdependent. So now if you see in the Bhagavatam also, Prabhupada is quoting so many shlokas from the Bhagavad-gītā. And even in the 11th chapter, we have the gigantic form, that is a Virat Roop of the Supreme Lord. And Krishna shows the Virat Roop to Arjuna. And Arjuna really gets bewildered and then says, okay, please, I want to see your Sham Sundar form. I don't want to see your this Virat Roop form. So devotees of the Lord will always love to see the Sham Sundar form. And what is that Sham Sundar form? That is a two-handed form playing the flute in a Tribhanga, pose. So devotees of the Lord will always like to see his Saumya Roop and not his, ghastly form or his Virat Roop. And devotees of the Lord will always try to see how they can serve the Supreme Lord. So that is why Prabhupada is saying that in that way, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the postgraduate study. So if somebody has studied Bhagavad-gītā, we are talking about studying Bhagavad-gītā, not reading Bhagavad-gītā. Studying Bhagavad-gītā means you read and you apply. So that is called studying Bhagavad-gītā. So that is the graduate study. But Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the postgraduate study for the student. So Krishna willing, if we complete 12 cantos, then you all are also postgraduate students of this Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This is what Prabhupada wants to say. I just skipped mentioning this particular point. Preeti Mataji, you read 33rd shloka, right? Or no? Yeah. 33rd shloka she read. Yeah. Ishasya keshan vidur ambuvan aha vasastu sandhyam kuru varya bhumna avyakta ahuridayam manascha sa chandrama sarva vikara koshaha. Best among the Kurus, the clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The terminations of day or nights are his dress. And the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes. So, when you say that the mind is the moon, and we'll see ahead also, there is some more also actually. I think it's a little incomplete. Yeah. विज्ञानम शक्ति महिमा मंति सर्वात्मनो अंत करणम गिरत्रम अश्वशत युस्त्रा गज नखानि सर्वे मृगा पशव श्रोणि देशे. This also has a translation. The principle of matter, Mahat Tattva, is consciousness of the omnipresent, as asserted by the experts, and the Rudra Dev is the ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and wild animals and the quadrupeds are situated in the belt zone of the Lord. So, if you see the main aspects of our even subtle body are what mind, ego, intelligence, and consciousness, which is called Chitta. So the presiding deity of Chitta or consciousness is Vasudev. Then the presiding deity of ego is Shankarshan. The presiding deity of intelligence is Pradyumna. And the presiding deity of the mind is Aniruddha. And when you say all quadrupeds, that is, these are the four quadrupeds. Like when the first expansion of Lord Kṛṣṇa is Lord Balram. From Balram comes Mahashankarshan. From Mahashankarshan, there are four quadrupeds which come. There is Vasudev, Shankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And then again from Shankarshan also, you have from again Shankarshan, you have Narayan. From Narayan, you have Mahavishnu. From Mahavishnu, then you have the three other Vishnus. From three other Vishnus are Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Shirodaksha Vishnu, and Karnodaksha Vishnu. And again from Garbhodaksha Vishnu, you have Lord Brahma. From Lord Brahma, you have Rudra. So this is the, what do you say, the hierarchy chart or the genealogical order from Krishna who all come that way. Let's go to the next. Vayamsi tad vyakaran vichitram manur manisa manjuno nivasah gandharva vidyadhara charanapsara swara smritir asuranika viryah. Lakshminarayan Prabhu, please read the translation and purport both.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Translation. Varieties of birds are indications of his masterful artistic sense. Manu, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence, and humanity is his residence. The celestial species of human beings like the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and angels all represent his musical rhythm, and the demonic soldiers are representations of his wonderful prowess. Purport. The aesthetic sense of the Lord is manifested in the artistic, colorful creation of varieties of birds like peacock, parrot, and cuckoo. The celestial species of human beings like the Gandharvas and Vidyadharas can sing wonderfully and can entice even the minds of the heavenly demigods. Their musical rhythm represents the musical sense of the Lord. How then can be he how then can he be impersonal? His musical taste, artistic sense, and standard intelligence, which is never fallible, are different signs of his supreme personality. The Manu Samhita is the standard law book for humanity, and every human being is advised to follow this great book of social knowledge. Human society is the residential quarters for the Lord. This means that the human being is meant for God relation and association with God. This life is a chance for the conditioned soul to regain his eternal God consciousness and thus fulfill the mission of life. Maharaj Prahlada is the right type of representative of the Lord in the family of Asuras. None of the living beings is away from the Lord's gigantic body. Each and every one has a particular duty in relation to the supreme body. Disruption in the matter of discharging the specific duty assigned to each and every living being is the cause of disharmony between one living being and another. But when the relation is re-established in relation with the Supreme Lord, there is complete unity between all living beings, even up to the limit of the wild animals and human society. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed this living unity in the jungle of Madhya Pradesh, where even the tigers, elephants, and many other ferocious animals perfectly cooperated in glorifying the Supreme Lord. That is the way to peace and amity all over the world. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Brahmanan Kshatrabhujo Mahatma Viduruр Angari Srita Krishna Varna Nana Bidha Bijya Ganopapanno Dravyatmak Karma Vitana Yoga. Anuprabhu, please read translation and purport.
Translation: the Virat Purusha's face is the Brahmins, his arms are the Kshatriyas, his thighs are the Vaishyas, and the Sudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipable demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord. Purport: monotheism is practically suggested here. Offering sacrifices to many demigods under different names is mentioned in the Vedic literatures, but the suggestion made in this verse is that all those varieties of demigods are included in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are only the parts and parcels of the original whole. Similarly, the divisions of the orders of human society, namely the Brahmins, the intelligent class, the Kshatriyas, the administrators, the Vaishyas, the mercantile community, and the Shudras, the laborer class, are all included in the body of the Supreme. As such, sacrifice by every one of them in terms of pleasing the Supreme by feasible goods is recommended. Generally, the sacrifice is offered with clarified butter and grains. But with the progress of time, human society has produced varieties of goods by transforming materials supplied by God's material nature. Human society, therefore, must learn to offer sacrifices not only with clarified butter, but also with other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory. And that will bring about perfection in human society. The intelligent class of men or Brahmins may give direction for such sacrifices in consultation with the previous acharyas. The administrators may give all facilities to perform such sacrifices. The Vaishya class or mercantile community who produce such goods may offer them for sacrifice, and the Shudra class may offer their manual labor for the successful termination of such sacrifice. Thus, by the cooperation of all classes of human beings, the sacrifice recommended in this age, namely the sacrifice of congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, may be executed for the common welfare of all the people of the world.
Thank you, Anuprabhu. So, Prabhupada always, if you see in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā also, Prabhupada has mentioned where Krishna says, whatever you do, you offer it to me, you do it as an offering to me. So, Prabhupada is always dovetailing this word sacrifice to congregational chanting of the holy name. Why? Because when you are chanting, the words that come out from your mouth are like an ahuti or the oblation in the fire. And then what is that Havan Kund or what is that fire sacrifice? Then that's your ear. And that when that transcendental sound enters your ear and through the medium of the ear, it reaches your heart and it cleanses your heart. So now if you see in this particular shloka, the yogi meditates on this form of the Virat Roop. And so though it is an imaginary form, that does not mean he can imagine anything he wants. It is imaginary, no doubt about it, but this is the bona fide imagination. We cannot imagine whatever we want to be the form of the Lord. This is not allowed. So whatever exists is covered by this form and nothing exists beyond this particular form. So this is what is being said in this 38th shloka. Let's go to the 37th shloka, sorry. So, I'm sorry, I'm just reading the Yan Savishwara Vigrahasya Yah Sannivesha Kathito Maya Te Sandharyate Asmin Vapus Shis Sthavishte Manah Swabuddhayana Yato Asti Kinchita. Vrinda, please read translation and purport both.
Yeah. Translation. I have thus explained to you the gross material gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on this form of the Lord because there's nothing more than this in the material world. Purport. In the Bhagavad-gītā 9.10, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has verily explained that the material nature is only an order-carrying agent of his. She is one of the different potencies of the Lord, and she acts under his direction only. As the Supreme Transcendental Lord, he simply casts a glance over the material principle, and thus the agitation of matter begins, and the resultant actions are manifested one after another by 6 kinds of gradual differentiations. All material creation is moving in that way, and thus it appears and disappears in due course. Less intelligent persons, with a poor fund of knowledge, cannot accommodate the thought of this inconceivable potency of the Lord Sri Krishna, by which he appears just like a human being. His appearance in the material world as one of us is also his causeless mercy upon the fallen souls. He is the transcendental to all material potencies, but by his unbounded mercy upon his pure devotees, he comes down and manifests himself as the personality of Godhead. Materialistic philosophers and scientists are too much engrossed with atomic energy and the gigantic situation of the universal form, and they offer respect more seriously to the external, phenomenal feature of material manifestations than to the numeral principle of spiritual existence. The transcendental form of the Lord be, is beyond the jurisdiction of such materialistic activities, and it is very difficult to conceive that the Lord can be simultaneously localized and all pervasive, because the materialistic philosophers and scientists think of everything in terms of their own experience. Because they are unable to accept the personal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Lord is kind enough to demonstrate the Virat feature of his transcendental form. And herein Srila Sukadev Goswami has vividly described this form of the Lord. He concludes that there is nothing beyond this gigantic feature of the Lord. None of the materialistic thoughtful men can go beyond this conception of the gigantic form. The minds of the materialistic men are flickering and constantly changing from one aspect to another. Therefore, one is advised to think of the Lord by thinking of any part of his gigantic body, and by one's intelligence, only one can think of him in any manifestation of this material world. The forest, the hill, the ocean, the man, the animal, the demigod, the bird, the beast, or anything else. Each and every item of the material manifestation entails a part of the body of the gigantic form, and thus the flickering mind can be fixed in the Lord only and nothing else. This process of concentrating on the different bodily parts of the Lord will gradually diminish the demonic challenge of godliness and bring about gradual development of devotional service to the Lord. Everything being a part and parcel of the complete whole, the neophyte student will gradually realize the hymns of Isha Upanishad, which state that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. This sense of mindedness will diminish one's pride and challenging the existence of Lord. Thus, one can learn to show respect to everything, for all things, and parts and parcels of the Supreme Body. Hare Krishna.
So in this last 4-5 lines after this, there are 3 things actually to worship the Virat Rup. If you see what Prabhupada is saying, that the first thing is that how will he worship? He will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. Then this sense of God-mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of God. So firstly, with great faith, he will accept and he will not commit any offense. Then he will not have any pride also, and he will not challenge the existence of God. And the third thing, that he will show respect to everything, for all the things are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So these are the 3 things in which a person can worship the Virat Rup of the Lord. And even in the first paragraph, if you see over here, Prabhupada is mentioning this Gita shloka, which says that Maya Dhakshena Prakriti Suyate Sa Characharam Hetu Nanena Konteya Jagat. What is that? Jagat Viparit Vartate. So he says that in that particular shloka, he says that this Maya Dhakshena Prakriti, under my supervision, all this material nature is actually working under my direction, and it is producing all moving and non-moving beings, and under that rule, under my direction only, all this cosmic manifestation either is created or annihilated again and again. So it is for the, under the direction only of the Supreme Lord. Though the Lord is aloof from all the activities, but still the Lord is the director. You can say the Supreme Director, what Prabhupada mentions over there. And Krishna also says that all the living entities that are there, whoever are in different species, so he's saying that Aham Bija Prajapita, I am the seed giving father of all those living entities. So if you see many places, Prabhupada is mentioning, and in this first paragraph also, how does the Lord, create this cosmic manifestation? So he's saying that as the Supreme Transcendental Lord, what does he do? He simply casts a glance over the material principle or the prakriti or the material nature, and thus the agitation of matter begins. So in the beginning, everything is in a dormant state, which means what? Sleeping state. There is no activity at all. But the moment the Lord glances on this dead matter, then it starts having light. It starts having light means there is some agitation starts, and then the resultant actions are manifested one after another by the 6 kinds of these gradual differentiations. And then this material creation is like, moving. Then it is now it has started appearing. But when time will come, it will disappear also. So where will it disappear? It will disappear into the body of Mahavishnu only. It will go into the body of the Supreme Lord only. So that is why if you see from the pores of the Lord, there are innumerable universes coming out. And then when there is annihilation, then all the, all the living entities, they enter into the Lord's body again. And if you see, even when the Supreme Lord just merely he, glances and he injects all the living entities into this womb of this material nature, there are different forms taken by, the different living entities. And then according to their whatever last desires they have and activities, then all these living entities, they start doing those activities again. And the material nature or the prakriti gets activated, you can say. So this is how this material creation starts moving only by the glance of the Supreme Lord. So how can we appreciate this? Imagine, okay, I'm also glancing at particular thing over here right now, but nothing is happening. That object also, for example, I have a glass of water in front of me right now. I'm glancing at the glass of water, but nothing is happening. But imagine Krishna, he is glancing at the material nature and the whole cosmic manifestation starts functioning on its own. Oh, what a powerful thing. So all these things we will start appreciating, and we will not commit any offense towards the Lord. When we try to even, of course, there is no comparison between us and the Lord, but at least we will come to that point that yes, Krishna is the all powerful. Krishna is the all, proprietor, because he has created. Now, just at one glance, I cannot do anything. I can only, just open my eyes and look at somebody or glance at a particular object. But show us one person in the world who just glanced and something was created. So here is Krishna, only by his glance he is creating this material world. So yeah, Priyanka Mataji has a question. Mataji, all the natural calamities, are they his energy? Yes. Or are they the reactions of mankind? No, no, no. This is actually what happens. All these calamities, why do they happen? When there is a lot of burden of sins on the earth, then these natural calamities happen. Like for example, wherever there is a lot of cow slaughter, then you will have earthquakes, frequent earthquakes over there. If you'll remember, in Nepal, some time back or some years back, there was an earthquake. Now, why was there an earthquake in Nepal? Because 5,000 cows were slaughtered in Nepal at that particular place. And that's why there was an earthquake over there. So, no, these natural calamities happen when a lot of sins have been created by the humans. And that's why these natural. So there's another question which she's asking me is that with the destruction of the universe, the laws of karma still exist and are carried forward? Yes, good question. Yeah, whatever your desires are there, whatever are your karmas that are there, that you have to suffer. They don't get nullified. They can be only this by chanting the holy names of the Lord. So, one is actually you are controlling the mind or you're calming the mind, and one is you're purifying the mind. These are two different things, and out of the two, purifying the mind is more important because the mind, in mind there are many anarthas moving around. There is hatred for somebody, there is envy for somebody, there is pride for ourselves, there is anger. So all these anartha means unwanted things that are not really required for Krishna consciousness. That the chanting of the holy name will actually purify it. And then when you chant, then everything gets nullified, but you don't have to do it again. And then you reach to a place where you have firm faith in the Lord. And all these things that are there, what we are talking about over here, that we will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. We will not commit offense not only to the body of the Lord, but will not commit offense even to anybody, not even to an ant, like Jad Bharat or Mrigari or the hunter. So, and it will diminish one's pride. Chanting definitely will diminish one's pride, where we're challenging the existence of God. So, chanting the holy names of the Lord is really very purifying. I'm not telling this to only you all, but I'm telling this to myself also, because I'm very weak in chanting. I barely chant only 16 rounds and not more than that. So, yeah. Let's go to the next. Oh, it's 10:19. So, I think we'll just halt over here at 38 number shloka. And tomorrow we'll continue with 39 number shloka. Anybody else has any queries or questions to ask regarding whatever we have studied? You're free to ask me. Okay, you all don't have any questions. Okay, fine. Yeah. So we'll wind up for the day today. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much.